Hello, everybody. Welcome to the EDPA Northwest and Mountain Chapter meeting for this month. I am Katina Rigall Zipay with Classic Exhibits, and I also have Matt Wolf, the design director of Condit, with me. And we are
Hello,
really
everyone.
Hi, Matt. And we are really excited to share the things that we saw at EuroShop this year. EuroShop is a trade fair that happens in Europe, in Dusseldorf, Germany, and it happens every 3 years. It's based on retail design, so lots of different types of retail parts and pieces, and it has quite a big footprint, about 16 show halls with a different theme or product in every hall. So there's quite a lot to see there. And I have been to this show a few times before. This was Matt's first time, right, Matt?
That's right. Yeah, my first time there. Long wanted to be there. Finally made it happen, and it was as amazing as I had expected it to be.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really fun presentation because I have been there a few times before and have just a little bit different perspective, and Matt, having it be his first time, saw things that I didn't see and vice versa. So I think we have a really well-rounded presentation with lots of fun design examples for you. And I was just going to take you through a few of the highlights of previous shows just to show you how the designs can evolve and also translate into trends that we start to experience here in the US, and then we're actually able to incorporate in our designs at Classic and Condit and at many of your companies as well. So the first time I went to EuroShop, it was 2014. There was a lot of angles. There was the tightly radiused corners with the angles, and there was a lot of some the like faceted, like three-dimensional angled faceted sort of sculptural pieces throughout like a lot of different exhibits. And then the next time I went was 2020. I did miss 2017 because, like I said, it's every 3 years. But in 2020, there was quite a lot of this peaked roof sort of house shape. You can see the angles here, even creating that shape. And also there was a lot of Edison bulbs. There were just certain things that stood out because they were ubiquitous throughout the show in quite a lot of exhibits. And in 2023, some of the things at the most recent EuroShop before this year, trends included a lot of cylinder shapes, these natural materials like the paper, the rope, lots of basket type lights, baskets here, a lot of greenery. I would say pretty much every booth had greenery in it somewhere, somehow, walls, ceiling, floor, buckets, something. There was a really great development with the flexibility of LED rope lights, so we got to see that in a new light, in a new way. This arch shape became pretty popular at the 2023 EuroShop as well. And so here, when I brought these thoughts and these inspiration back to Classic Exhibits, we have specific products and specific ways we build things here in the US that are a little bit different than they build things and the types of products that they might prefer in Europe. But we have reasons for that, right? And also here at Classic specifically, we have our very specific product lines that we build with, or specific types of extrusions or things. And we also are able to build with custom wood. So you can see here, there's a couple examples with that arch or that pill shape. And this would be a wood example with LED lighting in the center. And also, like, here's an extrusion shelving system with LED lighting behind this pill shape that's set off from the wall. This is a little bit more of a custom inline, as opposed to this one where I use this peak roof shape to create a very portable inline through our Symphony line, which is a very lightweight extrusion, no tools set up, type of system, but we're able to bring those trends back and turn them into US friendly designs that aren't going to kill your labor or your weight with the shipping or the materials budget. So that was just to give you some context. So the way I like to start looking at designs as I was walking through EuroShop was, what are the new technologies that are allowing us to create new different shapes, add lighting to things that we haven't been able to add them to in the past, that sort of thing. And some of the basic technologies that have really evolved recently are 3D printing, sustainability, and use of LED panels. Let's see here. This was a really interesting application. It looked like a rock wall. I'm sure these weren't real rocks, but there were curved LED panels as well as square cube panels that had these really seamless, you couldn't see the lines, the pixels are really small, and it really looked like a waterfall feature on this big rock wall, which was one of the first things that you saw as you entered Hall 1 in EuroShop. So here's a page devoted to some 3D printing. You can see several of, or at least two of these examples are from a booth that's a shop fitter that we talked to at great length. That they have a 3 meter by 3 meter by 1 meter 3D printer. So they were printing this whole facade out of one piece. There were no seams. So they were able to get this really smooth finish, the cool iridescent shape or texture, material finish. This one as well was like a 10-foot tall sculptural sort of wavy piece. You can get these really wavy, natural looking shapes on your wall when you're 3D printing that are hard to achieve with normal construction, standard construction methods that we're used to. This was a really fun interactive. It was a push button right here. And then they would give you an ice cream cone. You put it into this 3D printed ice cream cone, and the sprinkles would come down. And at the same time, you saw the large LED screen behind the front reception desk had sprinkles come down as part of that interactive. So it was all integrated together. There were a lot of really fun different 3D printed shapes in this exhibit, and this is one of them. It's just a bunch of hands kind of all melded together. That would be really difficult to build or put together, right? This sort of sculptural piece, but to 3D print it, it's doable. You just program it, you create it, and then you just set the printer to print.
Yeah. And that was one of my biggest
Here you
takeaways
can
too
see
from the,
we've got these LED lights behind these screens that were 3D printed. So really, for context, like I came up to about halfway on this day. Another technology that it has evolved and looks really, really cool are the LED lights. They're still continuing to get more and more flexible, more and more thin. This was a really tiny little bead of LED light, just bent at all these different angles. It's very consistent lighting, and it's so flexible, and you can have, you know, whatever length, whatever size, whatever shape that you want, really. We saw it applied to a lot of different types of panels in many different ways, on the fronts of panels, on the sides of panels, thick strips of LED, thin strips of LED, rounded strips of LED. We saw LED embedded into many, many different types of products that we'd never seen it embedded in before. It's just become so flexible that it's being applied in many, many new ways, where we, you know, 5 years ago, we probably would have been like, oh, we can't do that. Also, sort of straight LED tubes, that was a trend we saw. A lot of the straight tubes, or like these formed ones that were straight but also had some curves. And then here's another example of the really natural sort of curvy shape, or this is another rope light that just is used to create this beautiful chandelier. There's a video there for you. Okay, this slide's going to have a lot of videos. This is my slide dedicated to LED video panels. There's also going to be a little bit of projection in here, so it's not 100% LED panels. But you can see at this booth, the nice big arch, these hanging LED lights that were programmed, and then on this huge back wall, there was a spherical, like half a sphere coming out at you, and then all these little square LED tiles that were animated and coming in and out. You can kind of see in the video how they're elevating and receding, and all of it's being controlled by this user here, this person just visiting the booth. It wasn't I'm sure there was some pre-programming, right? But he came in and he interacted to create that experience, that specific experience. Let's see, this here is just one example. There was quite a lot of cubed LED panels where they were fitted together. All 6 sides came together and you really couldn't see the seams. It was very high quality, very well done. This is another larger example of all 6 sides of this panel. Also, you can't see the bottom. So I guess I'm going to say 5 sides that were the LED panels. And the pixels were so small on these. It really was like the quality of like a high quality TV. I
Yeah,
believe.
I think I was talking to some tech people there.
Yeah.
I think 0.9 millimeter
Okay.
is the step forward they're taking. So, from a distance, I mean, talking even from maybe 10 feet, it
Right.
looks like a monitor. And then you finally realize, oh gosh, they're pixels.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it looked so good that there were some in particular that were just really excellent. Here's a large LED screen that was interactive, not by touching anything, but just by holding your hands up, or it would give you instructions. So here you can see Kevin's holding his hands up, and that prompted the screen to have this animation occur. Just more of sort of this cube shape. See quite a few different pieces all in one wall. It's really interesting. Okay, this piece up here was hologram, and they can actually get quite a bit bigger than that. I've seen mostly in some of the exhibits we've designed, we've done really small holograms, maybe this size of like the bird, but like this was really large, and they were like, we can do even bigger. We can do a giant wall, and it's a really cool 3D animation that it looks like the object is turning around. You can have your logo. You can have a lot of really cool things happening with those holograms. It's just that technology has really become quite impressive. And then this screen here was just, embedded in this bench. So it's on the floor, essentially, just elevated a little bit. And it's got the mask of the curved line around it. We saw some good masking. Sometimes the corners would be masked with like a radius. This is obviously a much larger mask that's creating that shape. But it was interesting for sure. Okay, so this is my slide dedicated to sustainability. There were a lot of products at any booth you went into. One of the first things that the folks there working the booth would tell you is what their sustainability story is, whether their product was sustainable because it was recycled or recyclable or local, or had some sort of property that created a real sustainable footprint. And so just for a few examples, these mannequins were made out of recycled paper. And here's a fabric printer that I know it might be hard to tell because the photos looks a little bit askew, but this is actually a big SEG wall with 2 doors cut out, and the doors are angled. They're not straight up and down. This is an angle, and there was a window cut out of the middle. And this is, a pretty technical, difficult shape that in a lot of cases you would think like, oh man, this has to get test fit and it might take a while if we have to get it reprinted. But this company's sustainability story was that, they are so accurate and so good with the detail, and they have their system down to such an art form that they don't reprint graphics because they get it right the first time. You give dimensions, they print it, it fits the frame exactly as you've submitted your dimensions. So that was a really cool story. And then products here, products here. This was a shop fitter that just was talking about all the different products that they recycle from their projects. And this company here was one of the designs that was nominated for an award with Exhibitor Magazine. So Kevin Cardy and I were on the judges panel, and we went in there, and they had really interesting lights that were 3D printed. They were pretty small, but they were completely 3D printed. So there was like minimal assembly required, and they were mobile and flexible. You could move the little eyeball around in the light. But the product that was being 3D printed was a recycled product. And then also the corrugated cardboard is something that's been pretty prominent, I would say, at EuroShop. I've seen it in a lot of applications at previous EuroShops, and it's a very sustainable product as well. As far as it's lightweight, it can be recycled, and it's easy to pack down. So it takes minimal footprint when moving it from place to place. Robots were something that we saw in quite a few exhibits, whether it was something automated or some sort of robot that was acting as a greeter, interacting with you. And then I think, see if the next slide is going to come up for me. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the structure section, and this is looking at the basic types of shapes that we saw a lot of this year at EuroShop. So again, this shape, this pill shape or this arch shape, we call it a pill when it's a complete and it has an arch on the bottom as well. This shape was very prominent. It seemed like most exhibits had this shape in them somewhere. I'm sure there were some exhibits that didn't, but it felt very much like
It was very prominent.
Yeah, it was hard to find an exhibit without this shape in it. So just FYI, this shape is going strong. Squares or cubes were also a very prominent shape. I think the technology of the LED cube is something that is helping to facilitate that trend, because you have, the really high quality LED cubes. People are like, "Ooh, that's interesting. I can present my product on that, or I can show this as a, really exciting exhibit piece." And then it makes sense to also follow that shape with your other exhibit properties so that it's all cohesive. But there were really interesting applications where this is sort of a square shape that just sort of ribbons around this really huge exhibit. Or in this large exhibit here, they had little squares strung together all the way around the perimeter of their very large exhibit, and it changed from color to color at multiple stations. But they had a very strong square theme going as well. But I just want to point this out too, the curved corner. There were some interesting applications of flooring, the edges of flooring being customized as opposed to just having the standard square corners. Also, I think that having an angled line sort of sliced through the cube was something that I saw in several really nice modern exhibits. So I think that is a really interesting take on the cube, where you don't necessarily have to have just a square cube or square with, that being your whole shape. And the natural theme was very strong. That first slide I showed you that had the waterfall, coming down those faux rocks. That's an example. These are some more examples. You have the faux rock. You have an exhibit that looks like a campground, and these LED tall panels had flames on them. So it was like a fire pit here in the middle of this exhibit, and LED screens in the background of this exhibit that had various nature scenes coming in and out, and just this real mountainy natural theme, rocks on the floor, just really through and through trying to add in these natural elements And sometimes it's in more of a stylistic modern way, right? With the way that the lines are like on a topographical map. You can kind of have just sort of those natural feeling lines. And in this exhibit as well, and this one too, the way they constructed the counter, the way they had these large rock forms, but they were just like a real natural sort of outline shape. So it's sort of a more modern take as opposed to like a super naturalistic take on those natural features.
Hey, Katina, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, when this is Mel, I have a question for both you and Matt. I've noticed that so many of the exhibits appear to be on raised floors. Can you
Yes.
guys talk about the raised floor and how that impacts the actual designs that you both saw?
Sure. Matt, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think raised flooring gives it a versatility that's relatively unknown in the States. I know that there are a few companies that do sort of implement it, but over in Europe and I'm sure in other continents as well, it's a well-used item. One of the things that most notably, typically we would have things with base plates, and then they go underneath either the rollable vinyl or underneath the carpet. You completely eliminate that as you're able to kind of screw down into it. You're able to add in sort of wayfinding elements via recessed LED, just like it were a normal wall panel. Uh, we can also distribute water, distribute power way more easily to all these individual elements. So, as far as sort of constraints, you're opening up a very nice, Pandora's box of design possibilities with that sort of flooring.
Right. I think companies do sometimes use it in the US, but it's less common because it does create a pretty big extra expense. We've had clients who are used to exhibiting in Europe who are coming to the States and they're like, I want a raised floor. Where's my raised floor? And once you go
Yeah.
through the budget with them, I think they start to understand like, oh, okay, is it the return on investment worth it here? But obviously, I think in Europe, it's probably not as big of an
So
expense. It's something that they are able to do, um,
it's
just sort of automatically.
standardized there.
Right. Okay, so radius corners. I think this falls into the category of a trend that really was super super strong. I don't know what to say, like 15 years ago or so. Um, and it was so overdone for a while that it kind of had to take a back seat, but it never went completely away. And I think there are some really new ways that people are handling this shape and bringing it back with the embedded LED lights. Obviously, you can see in these hanging in this little quadrant of hanging signs. You've got the LED lights around the edges of the bottoms of all these signs. um, and then also, I think it was interesting how I saw in multiple exhibits, they would do maybe just one curved corner as opposed to having four corners curved on the shape. So that was it. That was a new take, and I liked it. There were not as many circular, cylindrical, S-curve, uh,
Mhm.
exhibits, spherical type exhibits as I have seen at EuroShop in years past. Sometimes the circle is a really important shape, a really strong shape that a lot of people use in their designs. Here's some examples of some of the best ones or some of the most interesting elements that I saw that were those shapes still this year. But it just was not as prominent. And one of the interesting things you can do then, because the circle is never going to go out of style, it's a basic geometric shape. It's a beautiful, artistically balanced shape. Um, and when you know that many exhibitors are trending towards the sort of natural lines or the cube shape or the arch, and everyone's got the arch, arch, arch. Well, what can you do to be different? You can absolutely create an exhibit like this, where it's just all spheres, or your whole exhibit is a giant cylinder that you walk into. Um, but, and these were like huge circles. These were like, as tall as, what is this? Probably about 8 feet tall. And it was their product. It was like a sort of a like a countertop finish, like a faux marble or something like that. So did you have
Yeah,
something
and
to
a
add,
fun
Matt?
little fact about the Schweitzer
Mhm.
yeah. A fun little fact about the design of the Schweitzer exhibit, it was their 99th anniversary. And so those red balloons were a nod to the 99 Red Balloons song from the 80s. And that was a pretty fun theme to carry out through an exhibit design.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked really cool. It was very eye-catching. Anyway, slats are another building style or structure that I don't know. It seems like it never goes out of style, in my opinion. I've seen slats at every single EuroShop I've been to, and what keeps them really fresh is that you can do them so many different ways. They can be thick, they can be thin, they can be vertical, they can be horizontal, they can be framed out, they can be free, they can be, angled and sort of clumped together, natural. They can be all colored one solid color. They can be a variety and have wood tone. I mean, here's some slats in this hanging sign that are the pill shape, just varied up and down across. And then here's some slats that are essentially just LED tube lights or LED strip lights. Also here, this is just sort of like a slat shape with LED lights embedded.
Right.
Okay. And got my next slide coming up. Okay, so on to colors and materials. Uh, take a fun look at this exhibit here. This was at the end of my last presentation about EuroShop, yes, people were asking me what my favorite one was, and this is definitely in the top designs because it was so interesting with like just three materials, basically like brick, LED rope light, and this white fabric hanging from the ceiling. And it was so beautiful and striking, just with those three materials. The back of it, just want to point out, it's sort of a perimeter booth. It's on a back wall, and the flooring was brick laid out, and then it curved up. So it had that one corner radius like we were talking about on one of the previous slides. But colors and materials, let's take a little peek. Color-wise, doing a color wash was a really fun tool that many exhibits used to create a really eye-catching, strong design. You see even the signage is the same color as the exhibit. So it's like got a slight reveal and it's sort of hard to read, but not if you are in that space and your eyes adjust and like you really start to take in all of that textural detail. See the hanging LED bulbs there. So, you know, straight color, like literally just trying to create an exhibit out of one color or sometimes two. Or there were a couple exhibits that were really well done. One was in the mannequin hall where from room to room, they would have a different color. So you can see the purple room back here and then this blue saturated room here. And it's quite an experience to go into a space and have it be just intensely all one color.
And one of the things I noticed about those as well, which I absolutely love this monotone duotone thing. It is happening here in the States a little bit. I even noticed it. I'm at Global Pet right now, as evidenced by the beautiful hotel background artwork. It is being implemented here and there. But I know sometimes we get hung up on does the table laminate match the flooring? Does it match the SEG print? They were all like slightly off and it still implemented okay. It felt nice. It felt like it was purposeful and there visually there wasn't this nitpicking of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's not all one color perfectly dialed in. It still felt like a really well curated environment, even though the colors were just slightly different from each other.
Absolutely. Well, and it gives you a fun way to kind of play with shapes. So again, like some of these shapes we've been talking about, squares, the one radius corner. On here, we've got the radius corners, the arch, the LED lights embedded. When you have a booth that's totally one color, all of a sudden all those details just become that much more prominent and important and interesting. Okay, so this was a color scheme that I like to call sherbet or candy, that we saw in quite a few exhibits. The sort of, really light, playful spring colors, lavender, light pink, green, turquoise, yellow, was something that I saw in quite a few different exhibits. Here are just a few examples. And also another color scheme or just range of colors that we saw quite a lot was the brick or the terracotta color. So really anywhere from sort of a light peach to something like a really dark, like orangish red was used in quite a few exhibits. It feels really warm. It feels cozy, combined with light especially. It feels like you're just in a really cozy, warm space. The brick was used quite a bit. So, okay, that's another difference, between US and Europe. They don't have drayage there. So this booth with so many bricks, their whole flooring, the flooring that curves up and goes up the back wall, the fixtures in their booth were just stacks of brick. They wouldn't have had to pay the astronomical amount that we would, in the US to bring that brick from the loading dock to their exhibit. So there's some other ways you can do it too. I mean, here's an example with tile. This was a shop fitter, so they were building out full vignettes. But this sort of terracotta style color of brick or tile was really prominent. And then just, I don't know if you can see the detail in the line work here, but it's a little more visible here. Having those tiles or bricks laid in a grid end to end, not staggered like a typical brick lay pattern, but really just lined up and vertical like this was another pattern that was really, really prominent. And I even saw it printed on a printed graphic. So that's something, we can think about here in the US, like how do we do this? We can absolutely print it on fabric or on a solid substrate or create line work with some of the other details that we have a lot more access to. Matt, do you want to take over on this slide? Did I lose
Let's
you?
see it pop.
Oh.
Oh,
Yay.
here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no. Sorry, there was just a little bit of that lag with the slide change. So yes, one of the biggest things that was glaring to me was the use of expanded metal. And it's a specific product. It's a relatively affordable. There's like an agricultural and industrial use to it, but it was used very tastefully, powder coated different colors, painted different colors. So this top center, I think, is one of the very first images that I captured at the show in the lighting hall, and it just caught my eye right away. And I told that my wife who was with me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's expanded metal. The stuff that you typically see is just this off the rack kind of, inexpensive metal product. And then I continued to see it. And so there are a few of these images that touch on the expanded metal, the bottom center. And then I started to notice the trend of, oh gosh, there's a lot of sort of this perforated CNC metal, whether it's, whether water jet or laser cut. And it's used as sort of a screen. It gives some semi-privacy. It gives a little bit of, I don't know, there's kind of a curiousness to it, like what's going on behind it. And they use it a lot building layers. And I thought that there was, I would say 30-40% of the exhibits I saw had some sort of layering using a metal finish of various different colors and various textures. And it was something that I loved personally.
Absolutely. And, I've seen the expanded metal at a number of other Euro shops as well. And in the past, I have called it out, and I think it didn't catch my eye the way it caught yours. I love that you're bringing this up because it is such a cool material. It looks so amazing. Do you think there's any reason why? Is it super heavy? Like, why wouldn't we have been using it more in the US already?
It can be super heavy. The thing is it comes in various gauges of thickness, and so depending on the application, on like the industrial side, the usefulness side of it. But I think I would assume that there is a heaviness to it because it typically is steel. It's not an aluminum product or anything that we would associate with lightweight and easy on the drayage bill kind of a thing.
Okay, nice. Okay. Well, here's a product that was in quite a few different exhibits at EuroShop that I had never really seen before, and it looks like
Same.
crumpled aluminum foil. um, for some reason, it was often used in this little, like literally like aluminum finish, but it actually could be painted other colors. It's actually a canvas product. You can see down here, it looks more like a rock, right? Like a boulder that this monitor is mounted on top of. Or in this exhibit, there were a couple of monitor mounts that were made out of the silver that looked like they were mounted to these rock forms. So what it actually is, it's a canvas material with a sort of thick backer behind it, and it can be printed or painted with a color, a finish. Maybe it can even be printed with a photo. I don't know. I don't know if that would really be ideal since it gets crumpled, and sort of the appeal of it is this really crumply
Well,
texture that's so different from, the smooth textures that are often going to be all around it. So that was definitely a new trend that I hadn't noticed before. And then Matt, do you want to talk about the felt you saw?
it was everywhere. I noticed it. I assume it's a knife cut product, but it was absolutely everywhere. The undulating sort of forms that you can see on the right hand wall in this like light green. It was used to carve out various interfaces, structures, seating, as well, ceiling elements, as you're seeing on the top left. I haven't really seen that before being implemented as heavily. And speaking of heavy, it's not. And so it's an easy sort of drayage element that you can crate up a ton of it in one crate and then create these really unique environments. Referring back to the one that's on the far right, we're seeing this, sort of curved upward element. I'm moving my mouse as if you can see it, but Katina's running the show. So the top left is you're carving out these really interesting ceiling elements, and sort of cascading down into the wall. Just very versatile, very lightweight, and it seems like they're using it a lot in Europe right now.
Absolutely. And that's something that, again, I've seen at a lot of Euro shops before. And you're right. It really is interesting. I think the way that they're able to use it has evolved and is looking really very dimensional. You've got different layers, different thicknesses, different patterns. Um, it's a definitely a very cool product, I think, and it has a lot of sustainable properties to it as well.
Absolutely. And then acoustically, if you think about, the way we exhibit in the States with the private meeting rooms, the semi-private meeting rooms, sound dampening, it doesn't have to be just a boring room with a ceiling on it, potentially. You can play with the texture and elements and get that good sound dampening from inside.
Absolutely. Okay, this is another product that you noticed a lot, right, Matt?
I did sort of, uh, piggybacking on the expanded metal sort of observation, OSB, just your normal dimensional sheet good that is used in construction on a regular basis here in the States, is brought to life over there. I know that we've dabbled with it in past with like shows, like Outdoor Retailer, which seemed to be a show that was always kind of a DIY kind of vibe. But over there, they're using it strategically as a texture, as a color. Typically just natural tone. There might be a clear coat on it, maybe not. I didn't see a lot of it painted, but it was fun to see how they're using it as a texture, bringing in natural elements. There's probably a sustainability element to it as well. So if you're thinking of, the build and burn approach to an exhibit, it's not terribly harsh.
Yeah, beautiful. Drapes and fabric are something that they used quite a bit as well. You know what you were talking about, Matt, with like the textures and the see-through and the layers. I think that's really visible here in this example, and also, I mean, a lot of these. The drape is just such a nice, soft texture. So it creates a really interesting back
Absolutely.
wall because you have those sort of undulating curves, right? This was a really tall drape that was a super saturated print that went from blue all the way down to like red and then matched the red with the flooring in their exhibit. But even to just have a really long wall for one of these large booths and just thinking about like, how do we make this wall interesting? Well, let's add a section here with the drapes. This ceiling treatment, I mean, we've kind of seen it a couple times already now in some of the previous pictures, but think about these layers. See these layers of fabric? We saw it on the felt slide as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be fabric. In most cases, it was fabric hanging from the ceiling like this in the layers, but it could be other materials as well. This is just a really interesting overhead treatment that was used quite a lot, as well as the strips of fabric. So, long undulating drapes, strips of fabric. This photo right here, this was a very common ceiling treatment with these little strips of fabric hanging down. And they obviously have like some other elements included, like little LED rope lights and stuff to create a more complete ceiling fixture. Again, because of the difference in cost, whatnot, in Europe, I think having a giant ceiling structure in Europe, maybe not as big of an expense for them as it would be for us to have just like the whole ceiling covered with rigging that allows for, whatever you want hanging across the whole expanse of your exhibit. But I really like this idea. You can see it concentrated into some smaller areas, in these examples over here on the left, and hanging from this S-curved hanging sign, or these were some laminate strips that these laminate companies just decided like, hey, I'm gonna, create an
Right.
interest in my product by cutting it in this very specific shape. Right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That one, the top right image was striking, and then as you walk up to it, you realize, oh my gosh, it's their product. And it was beautiful, just well executed use. And you think of, from a design aspect of how can we take a customer's product and actually make it something physical and attractive and interactive on a show floor. They did a wonderful job with that.
Absolutely. And then you found some really
Yeah, and
awesome
the
examples.
the overhead strips.
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, sorry. The delay is got me thinking twice about what I'm getting ready to say. The
Yeah.
overhead strips were definitely, great call out by you. When we were talking earlier this week, it was all over the place, and I started just like kind of oddly calling them sky tassels because it just felt fun. It was a playfulness to it. There was something that just was way different than what we see here. And like you said, I completely agree. The ability to have overhead truss and overhead grid systems help to facilitate that on a really easy cost basis.
Yeah. And then you saw some really great examples of the greenery in these photos here.
Yes, correct. The integration of greenery, the way that a few of the various exhibits had them, this top sort of left center, right in the meeting or in the center of a meeting table. Nothing that you would typically think, oh, what a great idea! I'm going to put this giant plant in the middle of a meeting table. But it worked, and it was beautiful. And I think having the overhead element above, and I can't quite remember if that was an LED tube or not, or if it was just internally lit. Just really drove home this sort of cylindrical based, from sort of almost ground to sky, sort of design element. One of my favorites, I think, was on the bottom right. A great, well crafted reception desk, sort of front greeting meeting area that sort of cascaded down and transitioned into this plant off to the right. Just something about it caught my eye, super striking. The top right image, the sort of mossy element with some lights and whatnot, and I think there was even a fogger of some sort of emulating from it. Was very striking the way it came to a point, and then sort of off to the right there was the entrance into the space. It just felt nice as a really sort of a framework to entry point into the exhibit. And then the bottom left is they were I believe that was a fake plant company, like
Yeah.
the normal sort of plastic plants that you see. So everything was everywhere, but the boldness to just wrap a truck feature
Right.
in grass. That was fun and playful and a little over the top, and it was eye catching.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
Matt and Katina Milligan, I've got a question for you from Holly. She says, this is awesome to see. They've spoken a lot about the sustainability features they saw, which is awesome. I would love to hear about any examples they saw of advancements in accessibility accommodations.
Like for uh, people with disabilities?
I'm guessing
ADA
that's what it
style,
means. Yeah.
I assume. I would assume.
Did you notice anything in particular, Matt?
I did not. I know that it's normal to have entry ramps as far as the race flooring is going, because obviously huge hurdle there, and so I think it seemed like everywhere we went there was a good amount of ramping up into the show floor, but anything more advanced than what I'm used to. I did not notice anything like that.
Right. Yes, that's my observation as well. I didn't specifically notice other things than ramping in particular. I mean, I think there were screens at like all different levels, so that can play to, if there's someone in a wheelchair and sitting a little lower, I think there were definitely options for them
Right.
to interact with. I just also want to point out real quick, like it looks like we have like 9 minutes left in our hour because we've been having so much fun. So just if we want to have more time for questions at the end, we might need to zoom through these last like 8 or so slides. Okay.
Yep.
So graphics.
One
Go ahead.
one quick point real here. I took this image of the cemento, or however you pronounce it, because I noticed warm lighting. I know we get into this battle, or at least I do personally on the design side of things. What are we going to do? How are we going to light this? What's going to help the product and the exhibit speak? It felt like I saw more warm lighting than I have in years past of any show here in the States. I'm not sure if you noticed the same thing, Katina, or if you can maybe expand upon that thought.
Well, on that particular sign, I just advanced to the next slide so we can keep it moving. But on that one, I
Sure.
did like that it was that you showed stucco up close. I think stucco was a material that I also noticed that just, I think going back to that terracotta brick feel, like there was a lot of stucco. There was a lot of that earthen, I like almost like Southwest American, sort of feeling in like the natural form. Some of those 3D really undulating natural forms felt like dirt or brick or stucco walls. So just in general, like those things kind of tied together for me.
Absolutely.
So I love that you got pictures of this, because I think there were some really fun examples of 3D letters that were not just flat, but also had some dimension to them.
Yeah, there was a unique use of text and of logos. The top center one, I think, was probably my biggest takeaway from the show. The lighting also played an important role, the way that they were illuminating it from overhead. But it's one of those things where curiosity leads to an amazing discovery, and you walk up to this text that looks sort of funky, like what's going on with it, and it turns out they had just completely cut this text off from top to bottom. I think these letters are maybe 2 to 3 inches high, and so it almost plays into some architectural elements Katina was talking about earlier, with straight lines within an angle cutting through it. It caught your eye. It was intriguing, and then the way they treated the rest of the wall with the print text leading into it, it was just, well, it was beautifully executed. Another thing, real quick on this slide that I saw was the large text turning corners. We see that, I think. Or at least I see it on like Instagram and marketing and kind of New York style, or to me, and probably other metro areas. The way that they're taking messaging and wrapping it around a storefront corner, that was implemented really well. And one of those things that, like, oh, you're going to lead me and purposefully lead the observer from one side to the other just so they can continue that message. It was very interesting and really well executed.
Absolutely. And then this is sort of that same idea, but from the wall down to the floor. Hopefully my slide advanced for you.
It did, yes. Fun ideas, taking things where you're seeing, you walk up to an exhibit and you see everything from that, 4 to 8 foot level, maybe a little bit higher depending on where you're standing. And then it graduates down onto the floor and helps sort of polish up this presentation of a product and of a brand. I think one of the most simple and striking ones was this orange circle. It was a retail, fixture company, but sort of off to the side. Wasn't a major point of impact for them, but it caught your eye. Big punch of orange, light tone gray background. The top right, another really well executed exhibit, beautifully done SEG. Katina and I had another conversation about this earlier, like how well done the SEG was in this super organic shape forming this tree, and then LED strips sort of coming down, running into the flooring. Again, raised flooring, giving you that possibility. Really well done there. The bottom right felt nice too, just a graphic treatment on simple walls. Something we here in the States we have to deal with, right, is low cost, and we're dealing with Aluvision, B Matrix, and SEGs. The way graphics can transform an environment, this really spoke well to how we can do that here.
And speaking of that, just adding like really nice large scale graphics to the wall. This slide shows some fun wallpaper style graphics.
Yeah. This was amazing. The bottom bottom center image, the graphic was all over the place. There's a UFO sucking up a cow in one element of this graphic, and I believe, I can't remember, Katina, do you remember, was that LED or was that a SEG wraparound?
I think, well, on the counter or on the top? I'm pretty sure the top
Yeah,
is
the
SEG.
up top, the overhead.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
pretty sure that's SEG, but I know that
either
this
way.
company used AI for creating some of their graphics.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And the top left, I believe, was AI as well. We were walking up alongside of it, and you can see the AI sort of jitters and what happens when it creates graphics. But they
Yeah.
blew it up and married it, and it worked great. It was a really good installation, I thought. The Memphis sort of top center design element, carrying down to the floor, into the shapes, the color blocking of the mannequin. You have one with a yellow leg, one with the blue, then the orange top, sort of
Right.
mixing all those and making a cohesiveness, all based on a graphic treatment.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to zoom through our last section. Because I know we only have like 2 minutes left in the hour, and if anyone wants to talk and ask questions, like we'll be on for a little while after, so you don't have to worry that we're going to cut you off. But features, something big in the booth that really would draw someone in. This is my section devoted to that. Just real quick, notice the upside down hanging fabric. Like that was something, like I mentioned, we saw quite a bit of. Okay, so make your logo big, make your tagline big. You got the big tagline, you got the logo with some highlighting, with the light. Sometimes it could have shelving added to the large feature logo or sculptural piece. This company has a plus sign as their logo mark, so they just blew that up, and they obviously sell chairs, and so they used it as a really unique display for that. But blow anything up, it's interesting, it's eye-catching. You're like, what is this giant person, this giant tape measure, or have a big sculptural piece in the center of the exhibit. That's a sure way to get the people in. In a few cases, this was one of my favorite things about the show, to be honest. In a few exhibits, they really went with the theme of mushrooms. So it felt very like Alice in Wonderland, like I shrunk down and now I'm walking into I'm walking into the mushroom. I'm going to check out this product and feel it and experience it and maybe make a purchase. But this exhibit, the Modern Expo, we saw in some slides already with the perforated screen. They really went all out with the mushroom theme. They created all these different sculptural mushrooms out of the canvas and the metal. And these silver balls were something that we saw in quite a few exhibits, sometimes hanging from the ceiling, sometimes just as decorative pieces around. This exhibit, this company just put mushrooms all over their printed graphics everywhere. It was really an interesting choice, but I loved it. It was so fun. Trees are a feature item. Matt had some good example of exhibits with real trees. Here were some of, more sculptural, product heavy trees. Corrugated cardboard, strips of fabric for this graphic printing company. Again, this company with the really cool SEG, this paper company, the cubes on this were animated and really fun. And then mannequins. There's a whole hall dedicated to mannequins at EuroShop. And here are some of those fun mannequins, which you can see they have been able to take advantage of 3D printing. Now you can have really custom, awesome mannequins as opposed to, just the same mannequin form over and over and over. There's a lot of color blocking. Here's those silver spheres again, the pill shape, and fun. Lots of unique mannequins. I think we're going to stop the presentation there just to see if anybody has some questions. Mel, do you see any questions in the chat?
I don't, but I do have a question for you, Katina, and it's kind of a big picture question. Is, at North American shows, it's all about messaging. It's all about intense graphics and kind of almost screaming at clients to get them in there. But the European shows, there's less messaging, there's more color blocks, there's more texture, there's more shapes. It's a very different experience to walk through the hall than in an American show. How much of that do you think is just cost, and how much of that is just a different perception of what trade shows are about?
Matt, do you want to take this one first?
It's a fantastic question, Mel. It comes down to the philosophy of a trade show. And here in the States, like you said, Mel, messaging, graphics, what can we do? Small billboards, features, uh, technology highlights, all of those things. The way that it's, or what I'm captured, I'm, one show in on a Europe show. What I noticed is all about hospitality. It's asking about how have you been? How are your kids doing? Let's catch up. Let's sit around a table. We're not trying to worry about signing contracts. We're here to just conversate, uh, sort of, talk about where we're wanting to go without putting a strategic element in place for that. And then, of course, the wine. It really is. There is food and wine starting from show open to hours after show end. It really is a hanging out with your friends and catching up and learning where we want to go in the future kind of element, and not like in your face right now. Let's make a deal and do it. A completely different approach to how we see things here.
And
Absolutely.
I'm going to point out something, Katina, that you and I have talked about in the past when we both went to one of the things, the striking images that you don't see at those shows is images of human beings, of males, females, children, animals. There are almost no images of
Lifestyle
actually
images.
human beings anywhere in the
That's
graphics, which is
That's a
so
great
different.
observation.
Which is so different than what you would see at a North American show, and
Right.
I don't know why, but it really kind of leaped out at me when I've attended EuroShop in the past.
I will say that I think that there are a few pictures with people in them, but yeah, not not as many as you might see in a North American show. I think that they're very free and they're open to whatever they want to do, and so I saw probably like 3 pictures with the people smiling, just depending on what the product was that they were trying to sell.
Yeah. And if they
That's
were
a,
humans, they were mannequins.
yeah. And as I said, that's the creepiest hall in the entire show by far.
It's
All right.
so fun.
It is fun. There are no other questions, Matt and Katina. So
Okay.
if you guys want to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming and joining us today. I thought it was super fun to have this opportunity to see what Matt's impressions were, and just to share it with all of you guys. I know we are willing to share the slide deck if that's something you guys are interested in, and answer questions. You can reach out to me, Katina at classicexhibits.com. I'm sure same goes for Matt. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. This was a pleasure to present sort of our insights and thoughts and observations from Europe. All right. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Good to see you guys.